Have a seat on your porcelain throne. It's time to talk some shit on the Powell movement.
Welcome to the Powell movement. I'm your host, Mike Powell, and this week I'm happy to tell you that I filled my final sponsor slot with a brand that I've never even approached for advertising. Liquid Force is my favorite wakeboard company. I've had their boards, their wake skates, and their life jackets. That's all I've ever used because one of my best friends in Seattle, Ben Wallace, his older brother is Don Wallace, a legend in the Liquid Force world and the world of wakeboarding. But back when I first moved out to Seattle, Ben and another good friend of mine, Mike Goot, bought a boat together, Gladys, and that's where I learned to wakeboard, to wake skate, and learned all about the Liquid Force brand. Back then, when I thought of Liquid Force, they were the armada of skis at that time. They were pushing the envelope of progression. They had the sickest team. The graphics were cool. They had events like Wakestock. They had their finger on the pulse of what was cool and fun, but they weren't acting like they were too cool for school, which are the brands that I like, the brands that just do it and live that way, and that's how Liquid Force was, and they still are. Where am I going with this? Well, I'm talking about my last ad spot. So I went to the WSM show recently to look for a sponsor to fill that last ad slot. Since then, I've had a few meetings with people, and while I think I have a great fit for a brand in the fall, which is the ad I was selling, I didn't have anything for the summer, and that was okay with me. But anyways, I went to the Payne McShlonky event to MC it, and I wasn't looking for anything, no sponsors, no nothing, just to hang out with friends and talk about a dude who was an amazing guy and changed the ski industry. I was on the mic for the whole deal, and Don Wallace, Ben's older brother, was there competing. Don was the only person on course wearing a life jacket and carrying a wake skate. And while the wake skate eventually got away from him, and he didn't really place that high in the actual snowblade contest because Don's not a professional snowblader, what Don did do was he placed second in the fundraising contest, and Don could have won. See, Don has this huge beard, and I brought beard trimmers with me because I was like, hey, I know Don's down by about $1,000, and I'm going to break out these beard trimmers while I'm on the microphone. I'm going to rally someone in the crowd to pay me $1,000 to shave Don's beard, and that would be really fun for the whole crowd. And I actually found a guy who would pay $1,000, but Don said no, which was unfortunate because this money was for the kids, and I'm not going to say Don didn't care about the kids because Don did get second place in the fundraising contest. When I broke out those clippers, Don was visibly shook. You could see his wife. She's there. She's like an MMA champion. She's got all kinds of title belts, and she's a badass. She looked at me with big wild eyes like, no, do not do this. And Don did not shave his beard, so his wife is happy. I was bummed. But after the event ended, Don and I sat there and we were chatting for a while, for like an hour, just catching up on old times. And then Don looked around and he's like, dude, I listen to your podcast every week. Is this your podcast demographic pretty much? And I look around the room and I'm like, yeah, you know, if you take away some of the women and take away all the kids, this is my demographic, 25 to 50 college-educated males. And you are looking at a podcast demographic of the Powell movement right now. He's like, this is who we want to talk to. We should talk about sponsoring your podcast. And I was like, hey, well, here's my number. And Don was like, done. We're going to run a test event with your podcast throughout this summer. And that's exactly what happened. So I was not looking for a podcast when I went to the Payne McShlonky. But I saw a good friend, and like they say, it's all about who you know. But in this case, Don was stoked on my audience. He wanted to get Liquid Force out in front of them. And really, it couldn't be more of a perfect fit because everybody who listens to my show, if you're not on the water in the summer, you are totally blowing it. So I highly recommend that you take that disposable income, buy a boat, and then go buy some Liquid Force stuff. If you use a life jacket or use a wakeboard or use a wake skate or anything that Liquid Force makes and you're going to be buying new stuff, please buy Liquid Force. I'm not just asking you to do this as a favor because I give you a free podcast every week. I'm asking you because not only does Liquid Force make the best gear in the industry, they're also going to extend a one-time usage code for 15% off a Liquid Force order when you head over to their website. You can find that code within the ad that you'll find in this podcast. So that means if you spend $50,000 on Liquid Force's website, you're going to save $7,500. You're welcome very much. Now it's time to talk about the podcast this week, and I have an OG ski filmmaker on the show, a guy who's been a major player in the game for over 20 years, and while at first sight, Jeff Thomas doesn't look like a super athlete, don't let that fool you. He is, or he was, and he's now pushing 40. He's a father, he's a husband, and Jeffy doesn't push as hard as he used to, but he still can backflip off just about anything. He can also throw a baseball 80 plus miles an hour, but Jeff never chose to be an athlete. He had it hammered into his head early and often that he should pursue a life behind the lens, becoming the award-winning filmmaker that he is today. Before I get into this one, I want to ask you to tell a friend about the show. That really does help things grow. So does sharing my posts on social media. That helps it grow as well. But most importantly, what I want you to do and what keeps this show growing is my sponsors. I only work with the best brands, and they are Liquid Force, Stanley, Outdoor Research, Elan Skis, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, and Best Day Brewing. Now, it's time to chat with an old friend, Jeff Thomas. People in the know you as the Wolverine. How do you get the nickname, and who gave it to you?
Oh, man. I wonder how much I want to sell myself out here right now. I guess I got it because I work hard and I'm always willing to climb mountains with a big backpack and, enjoy doing that. And kind of just sometimes will tunnel my way up the mountain to make it happen. So I'll sell myself out because it's more funny. I was down at Mount Baker with Cody, Townsend, Rubens, and Elise, I think. And I think had a big fun night the night before. Anyways, we're staying at my buddy Grant's house, Gunderson, and my wife was down visiting, and she said I was cuddling a lot the night before.
Okay.
So Cody looked over and was like, "Oh, cuddle muffin." So he straight out called me out, and I was like, "Oh no, that can't be my nickname now." So after that, I made sure to, I guess, dig in, and I always was down to work super hard, but I had to work a little bit extra hard. So we happened to go to, I think, Japan the next year. I was caught tunneling up the mountain. I was setting a boot pack because I often, in my opinion, athletes are always working super hard and I'm standing at the bottom or the side or whatever. So I'll often go try to help set boot pack or skin track just to kill some time. Also check other angles. So I got caught like tunneling up the mountain where all you can see is my head and my arms, like look like a Wolverine. And ever since then, I've kind of continued that trend, I guess. So there you go.
And it sounds like on the deep days, like you say, you're the one who gets to the zone before the athletes get there. You'll have your camera set up for the best shot. And when the athletes arrive and they're tired and they're sitting around because they're not as good on the sled as you are for the most part, you're the guy putting in that boot pack. Do you do that just to motivate the athletes too? Like if you're willing to work that hard, they're going to work as hard as you are?
I think there's probably some version of that. They, like I said, they all work so hard and they're busy, looking at lines and all that. So if I'm just standing there, I might as well help out. It also kind of does put me in the terrain, feel the snow, look around, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think there's a part of that I was brought up to work super hard. And if I'm willing to work that hard, that helps out. I think it kind of does, as you said, helps motivation. Also don't look too lazy, I think. And it kind of works out well.
And then with the athletes, when they're looking around trying to spot a line, if they can't find one, you're the guy who's going to point one out pretty quickly. Like, I see this, this, or this. But then if they look at what you say and they're like, I don't think I can hit that, or I don't think it's possible, you'll go up there and hit it yourself just to show them. Is that true?
No, not anymore. I'm way too old for that.
But I mean, that's been the case in the past. Like, I'm not making that up.
I'd probably have done that in the past, yes.
Okay, just making sure.
I wouldn't do it out of a way of, I guess, spite, but I would go, if you're not going to go hit it, maybe I'll go backflip off that because that looks pretty fun.
And then after a 10-hour day in the mountains, you get back to wherever you are and you'll put together like a highlight edit of the day. So when everybody's sitting down and they don't want to do anything else, you'll still work really hard. Do you still put in those kind of hours, and does your wife hate you for that?
I don't think she hates me, but I think she's always like surprised that, yes, when I come home, obviously got to unload footage, back up, double back up, charge batteries, make sure everything still works clean, camera gear, skins gear, all that stuff. But yes, I'll hop on the computer, depending obviously on a trip. She's not around, so it's a little easier to spend those long hours. But I like to review what I've done, make sure the ideas and the plans that we set out have worked, or the shots. If I try something new, check it all out. And I'll pull frame grabs for the athletes if they want to post them. Also, just I think it stokes out the sponsors or the projects you're working on. And then, we sit down and review stuff. And definitely in the past, I've made a few little edits here and there to stoke up, kind of put the trust in me, I guess, that I'm accomplishing what they're, we're all there as a team. So if I'm able to show them that it works, it kind of helps motivation, not just motivation, but like stoke for, ideas and making sure, I think just get everyone on the same page so that when they see my vision and their vision come together, it works out really well.
All right. Well, my final Wolverine question is, everyone knows the Wolverine can ski. You just said that, in the past, you'd go up and hit a big backflip on something if someone else wasn't going to do it, given that was in your past a little bit. But Who are the pros that you know today that you can do a better cork 7 mute than?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe like Cody, because I hit the road gap with him and Abba, and I got to do a little cork 7 lead mute over it and stomp that. So that was kind of fun. Maybe it was Cody.
Well, most filmmakers don't speak like that because most filmmakers aren't doing cork 7 mutes, but that touches on your work ethic, that touches on your talent on skis. But now it's time to talk about you. And a lot of people come on this show and they're born to be skiers. They grow up in mountain towns. They get in a program early and life revolves around skiing. But it wasn't like that for you. You were born and raised to be a baseball player. Can you give a little of your family history there?
Yeah, baseball was like, I guess, my passion for sure growing up. I absolutely loved it. My grandpa on my mom's side, my dad's mom, is in the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. He was an umpire, and he was basically like a team trainer through Major League Baseball and amateur baseball and different versions of professional baseball for 60 years.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah, and then on my dad's side, my other grandfather was like a semi-professional baseball player, and then my dad played for Team Canada. Yeah, so I like baseball a lot, and it was actually his fault, my dad. He showed me a pamphlet back in the day at 1998 on the glacier here in Whistler, pamphlets for Camp Champions and High North Ski Camp, and I looked at those and was like, I was kind of already into skiing because I skied as a kid, but wasn't like that into skiing. And he's like, oh, you might enjoy these. And I think it was 14 or 15, and yeah, he sent me. I happily went to those camps and completely changed my life when I quit baseball.
How far were you able to take baseball? And like, if you would have stuck with baseball, was there a chance for you to like hit the minors and then kind of work your way up? Do you think you had that kind of talent?
No, not a chance. I can throw the ball hard. How about that? And hit things hard. But no, I was never as good as other people. I played like up till I was 15, 16 years old. And I was on teams that went to like Little League World Series level kind of things like that, but for like 15, 16-year-olds and all that kind of stuff, and played down in the U.S. and all that, but nothing more than like Team Vancouver or something like that. But it was fun. It was great. I learned a lot.
That's pretty serious. How fast is your fastball?
Ooh, our mutual friend Mike Rogie and I went out threw against the radar gun once. I think he threw 69. I threw like 84, 85. That was just off flat ground. So I think, I could probably throw like mid-80s still. Maybe now I'm 41. Maybe not. Probably my arm would fall off, but somewhere there.
Well, that's incredible. But what also is incredible is that your dad shows you the brochure for High North when High North is pretty much brand new. And that was such an influential time. It was like a lot of the mogul guys were leaving that world to start the twin tip revolution, and the new Canadian Air Force was starting to explode. Can you describe the scene at High North that first year there?
It's so cool to like reflect back on that. Obviously, unfortunately, this year the glacier isn't happening, but that era that you just referenced, it's crazy. I was 15 years old, and you obviously all your mutual friends and such were there, like as little, really kids, even 18 to 24 years old, like Sox, etc., kind of kids, and watching that sport become a sport, kind of, or evolve from other sport disciplines, is like quite incredible. It was like Hawaiian shirts meets punk rock versus snowboarding and mogul skiing and racing all in one. And at High North, it was super cool. Like all these mixes of mogul skiers, a few kids like me that just like skiing. And, it was big jumps and, a quarter pipe with the pirate flag and the whole thing. Yeah, it was really cool. That evolution, and I was seeing that very first twin tip of the 1080 or the 1080 being created there that year and getting out the next year was like, when I look back on that, I was very privileged, and it was so cool to be a part of, at least watching that group of people, create that side of the sport that I love today and so many people love.
You brought up the 1080. Did you get a pair of those 1080s when they came out, or what was your first pair of twin tips?
I think I bought a pair of K2 pipelines. I think they were called off either Anthony Bernowski or Shane Zox, and that would have been my first twin tip. And then I did have some 1080s, and I think the Rozzy Powers and the old Dinosaur Candide Pro model, stuff like that. So a variety of those in the early days. Broke a lot of skis.
And then who were the people that you met at camp, camper-wise, that are still in the industry or are still your friends today? Because I feel like all those people at High North in those first couple of years kind of all did what you did and stayed within the industry.
Yeah, it's really cool. You're one of the first people that's mentioned that exact story. I think, I can't remember, at one time tried to tally up with someone else about all the people that were kind of there during that first year or so, and how many are within the ski industry or have passed through at some sort of high level. And it was quite a lot. It was like 11 of the 17 campers or something like that. But like people I know, like became good close friends with Anthony Bernowski. You don't see him as much anymore, but him, Cody Linge, and then there was like the Bishop brothers, obviously with New Schoolers, Doug and such. And then a variety of other people that just, came and go. I can't remember all their names now, but yeah, it was really cool to think back to like those people that you were just standing. I remember meeting Hugh Nolson. I think it was actually the next year, and he had like spiky hair. No one knew who he was. And he goes and like becomes obviously Hugh Nolson. You're like, holy smokes. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's crazy. There's a bunch of pros at that camp, but I think the biggest influence at that camp for you was the kingpin of filmmaking at that point, Jonny D. Can you describe the impact that Jonny had on you at camp?
Yeah, Jonny ruined my life. It's awesome. I have this video he gave me. Couldn't even remember it. I barely remember it, but I was always into whatever. I've probably been like grade 10 or something, but I was starting to, grab the handy cam from the parents and film my friends and all that stuff. So when I met Jonny, I was like, oh, this is really cool. And he asked me a question when I was either 15 or 16. He's like, what do you want to be when I grow up? And I was like, I want to be you, Jonny. And there's like a little video of me. I got given, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. He gave it to my parents for Christmas to give to me. He found it, and it's hidden on a DVD that no one ever gets to see. But it was pretty cool. Yeah, he basically was probably the greatest influence initially on my passion for the ski filmmaking side. I looked up to him and Poor Boyz as like super gods. Obviously huge fans of MSP, TGR, Warren Miller, everything at the time. But like Jonny it was really cool. And I still try this when other people reach out to me nowadays, my level. But I would send my VHS movie that I was making pretty much from grade 11, 12 on to him. And, send it in the mail. And then you get like an email back, like, I don't know, a month or two later, giving me notes and stoke on it. So yeah, we always stayed in touch, and it was really cool because I'd see him, generally speaking, each summer. I went to High North for a few years. I was a digger there for a year. And then I also just was skiing the glacier. So I'd always cross paths with him. So yeah, he was instrumental in me following my passion of ultimately my job. So yeah, he's a legend in that regard. Such a nice guy and so hardworking, and just brought such a stoke to it.
And I would think when you get that first email back from him after you send the tape, it's just like so motivational. Like, this guy thinks I have a chance. He wasn't just blowing smoke up my ass on the glacier. Like, he's really going to be in touch with me. And that kind of sets the path for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I say, like, if anyone ever reaches out to me now, I got to make sure I take the time of the day to watch what they send, give feedback, be excited, because people did that for me. So it's like you said, he shaped it all from that. Good dude.
But you weren't a filmmaker yet. You were a skier. And I believe you're getting hooked up with product and you're winning contests. What did your ski career look like?
Hitting my head a lot. Yeah, I, bounced around lots of like mid-level contests and stuff like that, and did all right. Made a few bucks here and there, mainly while I was in university, while I was going to film school and such, and kind of financed the good times at university, I guess, and getting some free gear and a couple fun opportunities. Got to go to like the US Open, I think, twice and see all that. Didn't do all that well, but it was really cool to be around. And yeah, because of that, the people I met along the way while doing those contests, or just being at like, up and coming events and stuff, were the people I ultimately filmed with, like Andy Mayer, Tyler Foreman, Zach Davison, and random people along the way. So it was, it was really cool.
And when you graduate high school, you end up going to 2 different film schools. You talked about that you would win contests and use money to party in school, and that's what I'm going to guess that was for. But then when you're in school, do you think like, hey, I'm going to start my own ski movie company? Or is there any dreams of Hollywood? Or what was the goal while you're in college?
Realistically, I think it was a facilitator, like you said, competing. And then I was filming more and more and more because I've really enjoyed it and always loved the idea of crafting my own little mini version of Poor Boyz, right? And as that started to happen, the athletes I was filming were getting better and getting more out there. And the videos I was making were starting to do a little better. And then, whatever year, I had kind of worked with a whole host of different people, friends mainly, and then, like 03 or something like that. I was in third year university. I was like, we'll make a movie company officially, and started to do the old classic DVDs and sell them online. And then as I graduated from one of the programs, I was getting, a little bit of financing, and Jonny had helped me out to like get distribution through Poor Boyz, and that kind of like amplified the passion into a reality of going, well, wait a second here. I'm actually getting budget. The people I'm filming are on brands of significance. And hey, people are showing up these movie premieres and buying DVDs. So we might as well see if we can pursue this more.
So you end up starting Theory-3 Media, and Theory-3 isn't Theory-1, Jeff Thomas, but whenever I think of Theory-3, I only think of you. But doing my research, I realized that you started this thing with Grant Gunderson and Tyler Foreman. How do you guys all come together, and what's the plan? Are you responsible for all video assets? Grant's responsible for all photo assets, and then Tyler's a writer?
Close, yeah. That's kind of the concept. That was I kind of vaguely remember those conversations, but you're right. It was Grant was photo, I was video, and then Tyler was like business guy. And yeah, it kind of worked, I guess, initially. But then, at that time I was going to school in Ontario. Tyler was doing his thing, and Grant was becoming a growing professional photographer. So that concept, it was like cool in like a greater business model, but realistically, we're all kids and stuff still learning. So yeah, I kind of just continued running with it. I remember saying to Grant, "You're cool with that," and Tyler, and we just, not went our separate ways. We still just hung out. I just made the video side of it become my own thing, and Grant ran obviously with Grant Gunder's photography and became Grant. And I think Tyler is now running White Pass Ski Area, and obviously was a skier for a long time within that.
So there's no falling out. It's just kind of like you guys realized you needed to go your own ways to make things work.
Yeah, totally. It's not like a viable business model when you're not really making any money.
True.
And Grant was like becoming Grant and was making probably the more out of it. So we were probably getting in his way anyways.
And that was a time for Grant where there was a lot of money to be made because they had these things called magazines, and give him there's magazines today. But back then, print was such a big deal that Grant could make a shit ton of money, probably more than he could make in the video world, because no one cared about video as much as they did print, it seemed like.
Totally. Back then, you're 100% correct.
And to be able to shoot and have a great movie, you need athletes. And when you're an unproven production company, was it hard selling people on being in the movie? Like, hey, give me your season and I'll film you? Or were they more honored that someone wanted to shoot them?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question. I think it was just a lot of friends or friends of friends that got introduced to each other. And some of the people I met at a young age, like James Himes and Jeff Schmuck and such, those guys, plus like Andy Mayer and some other people were all hanging out together. And, they had like a little clout. So then their friends or like peers that they were skiing with would join in, and that person might be so-and-so. And it kind of just worked out. And then as that developed into something more realistic, like, as you understand, like certain sponsors would start to be like, oh, wait, I have an athlete here, an athlete there. And that kind of becomes as what is the beginning of like a formal movie, meaning you have sponsorship with athletes getting, dictated into shooting with you. And it kind of just worked out. And yeah, that's kind of how it began.
It's time for my first sponsor break, and I'm so stoked to have Liquid Force as a partner. Liquid Force has been supplying the world with the best wake gear since 1995. And that premium gear, the wake, park, boat, surf, and foil boards, are not just equipment. They're a statement that screams, I'm not just in this for the activity, this is my lifestyle. While Liquid Force boards are packed with technology that will make anyone from the first timer to the up-and-coming pro a better rider, they don't throw all that in your face. You feel that tech when you ride, and you'll find all the details around the tech on their website. But Liquid Force takes pride in creating a fun, inclusive culture that encourages everyone to escape the drama of everyday life and have some fun on the water. To make your summer better than ever before, head on over to liquidforce.com and see what I'm talking about. If you find something you like, I'm going to save you 15% with my one-time usage code. At checkout, enter the code POWEL15. That's all capital letters, the number 15 with no spaces, and you'll get that discount when you check out. My next sponsor is Peter Glenn Ski and Sports. Summer is right around the corner, and based on the past couple of years, it's going to get really, really hot. And getting in the water is the perfect way to enjoy the heat. But you need to do it right, and Peter Glenn is your one-stop shop for all of your needs this summer. Think wakeboard, water ski, kneeboard, tubes, swimwear. They have everything to make your summer more fun and functional. Peter Glenn has all the brands, all the products, a knowledgeable staff, a best-in-class website if you can't make it into their stores, and a low price guarantee. That's right. If you find a lower price on a product that Peter Glenn is selling at a reputable dealer, call up Peter Glenn, let them know that price. They will match that for you. That really does help support the show by buying from Peter Glenn, and they're going to give you free shipping on orders of $50 or more. Peter Glenn isn't one of those big guys trying to take over the industry. They're the mom and pop shop that you've trusted to get your gear you need at the best prices for over 70 years. To find out more, head on over to peterglenn.com. My final sponsor this round is Best Day Brewing. And while I love the taste of a good beer, I don't always need the alcohol. I mean, my life revolves around driving my kid places, running errands, interviewing people, and all of these things I do better when I don't have a head full of alcohol. These days, when I'm not partying, I still like to enjoy an ice-cold beer, and that's where Best Day Brewing comes into play. I love their hazy IPA, the Kolsch that you can get on all Alaska airline flights, their Electro Lime Cerveza, which is the first Mexican-style NA beer that I've loved, and their new White Belgian style. They're all just so amazing and have just as much flavor as any alcoholic beer you're going to find. And they average about 60 calories a beer, and they won't get you in trouble. That's when I'm not partying. And when I am partying, I mix in a few Best Days throughout the night, and I found that by doing that, I can stay out until last call. You should try it. To have the best day or night ever, head on over to bestdaybrewing.com and get 15% off your first order. And if you make that order over $50, we'll throw in free shipping. You can thank me later. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. I'm going to get totally ahead of myself here, but I need to bring this up because over the years, you have been a proven talent scout in the ski world. Like, you found so many skiers and helped their careers. And while they all have to have talent to make it, you're the dude who sees them, realizes that they have what it takes, and you help them be in the spotlight in the ski industry. Can you list the people that you feel like you've helped break their careers?
Oh, I don't know. I hate to use the word break because that's on them. But people that have gone through, either were close friends of mine or whatever you want to call it. I hope they're all some version of friendship. But yeah, I guess realistically, like James Heim and Andy Mayer would have been the first group of people that we were all, together and became influential within the ski movie or competitive side or industry side. Those two initially, then you kind of go into a guy named Zach Davison, Tim Durchie, Mike Hornbeck, Wiley Miller, Dane Tudor, Brendan Kelly, Josh Stack. Then you had all the kids in Silver Star Penticton, like Matt Marquette, through all the Silver Star kids with guys, not kids anymore, they're all my age. Riley Lebo, Joe Schuster, Justin Torrey. Yeah, there's quite a few in those early days now I think about it.
They all came up through Theory-3 and you?
Yes.
That is incredible. I mean, you just listed a list of like the who's who of skiing over the past 20 years, it seems like, and they all started with you. So I've heard you refer to Theory-3 as like the farm system for Poor Boyz, but man, it's pretty incredible the amount of people that you had there. And you're working with Jonny and he's distributing your films. And I like to talk about money and stuff like that. And thinking back to the DVD days, does Jonny pretty much come up with a number that he's going to give you per DVD? And are you pretty much like, okay, I'll take that number, and then he runs with the distribution and you only have to worry about the creative side of everything?
Not fully, but kind of. So he helped me out. He would sell DVDs online, which would make some money there. And then he, as I was selling them as well, right around 2005, he'd hooked me up with Video Action Sports. And he kind of was the middleman to that DVD sales, as well as introduced me to some other partners of his, distribution partners that I just kind of worked with directly, like in New Zealand or Japan. And I think with Video Action Sports, I don't actually know. He obviously online, he would have taken a cut of it, I would assume. But he helped me in the distribution side. And then later in the Theory-3 deal style, I would said it was VAS was just sending me like checks for pre-sales of the videos to help with production and stuff like that.
Okay.
And that would have been through Jonny.
So you make 6 films under the Theory-3 name. Photoplay and Journal were the standouts, at least they were to me.
Totally.
And
yeah, same.
What was your best-selling DVD, and how many copies do you move?
It was either one of those two, or any of the last 3. And they were, I think, around 7,500 DVDs was like Journal. And I only have like a box or two left, a box left, so they did pretty well. And I think it was kind of incremental each year. I think it was maybe 5,000 DVDs and 6,000 DVDs and then 7,000 DVDs kind of thing in the last couple of years.
And when you sell 7,000 DVDs, are you making like $5-6 a DVD?
No.
Okay.
Probably a couple bucks, maybe a little more than that, maybe like 4.
So you're still on a shoestring budget. I mean, you're making $28,000 a year living your passion, and you need to buy a sled and a truck and put gas in it and do all that shit.
Totally. Luckily, I was living in my parents' condo in Whistler for cheap rent.
Did they charge you rent or did they let you live there?
I had to pay for the strata and the hydro and stuff like that.
In the U.S., we don't even know what you mean by strata and the hydro, but I'm guessing that's water and electricity.
Yeah, and what are you, HOA fees or shit like that?
Oh, yeah, you got those too.
Plowing, I don't know, stuff like that, yeah.
Where were you in Whistler? Were you like right in the village?
Oh, buddy, we were talking about it last year. I have 3, a bunch of people came over and being like, Schmuck was like, this place has seen some parties, and a bunch of old pros have rolled through this, even like where newschoolers.com almost started. Anyway, and like Jonny had lived there at times, JP O'Clair. It was pretty cool. It was just by the Whistler Golf Course, really close to the village, which was really fun as a young person. But also when I look back at it, we spent a little too much time having fun because it was kind of on the way back from the bars. So it was like anybody that lived just outside of the village would have to pass through the house I was living in. So whether even there's many stories of my wife being like, up, so-and-so, I was in bed, and then parties would happen after that. It's pretty funny.
Oh, that is funny. So
Yeah.
You and I first spent time with each other at the K2 Back 9 in early 2006. You were the point person for all video elements at the Back 9, and you brought an elite team of filmers with you. This was so early in your career. You were so young. Was it a big deal for you, for K2, to be like, this is our baby that we're going to create, and here are the keys to it, man. You're going to be the point guy.
Yeah, no, it was so cool. Honestly, that was like where I felt like all that like young hard work coming out of university and the trust that Jonny had put in, and then K2 as well. I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing. This is like my backyard, snowmobiling. But I was like, okay, get the right people that know how to act in the mountains and have experience. And yeah, it was awesome. Minus the one incident that I'm sure we'll talk about. It was like an insane event that I reflect back on as like a stepping stone in my career.
Before I talk about the heavy part, because you mentioned that there was one part we're going to talk about, but can you describe who Teddy Knape was?
Yeah, so Teddy was an extremely close friend of mine, was instrumental in the early years of Theory-3 because where he was going through university as I was as well, at a different university. He was at Western Washington University. He was from back in the Midwest, and yeah, he was close friends with Zach Davison, was my connection to Mike Hornbeck and such like that, and he was an up-and-coming young filmer, no different than I was, that him and I got along super well, and he unfortunately, as a very young child, had open heart surgery and a heart defect of sorts, and yeah, so he'd always been dealing with that, and he was pretty comical even when he was with my parents and my mom and stuff. So he was a legendary guy.
And after day one of the Back 9, there was a big sushi athlete dinner, but you, me, Teddy, Mike Goot, any of the workers, we didn't go because there was so much shit to do. And I was with Mike Goot, and I remember seeing you and Teddy at Splits Burgers, and we felt bad because you guys had just paid for your burgers when we got there, and we're like, shit, we couldn't pay for your meal, guys. We really wanted to do that. I'm sure you sent us the receipt anyway, but regardless, the next day, we're in the Callahan zone, I think it was, and Mike Goot skis up on Teddy, and Teddy's sitting down, and Goot was like, Teddy, are you just taking some time off because we didn't buy you dinner last night or something like that? And then Mike realized that Teddy wasn't breathing or there was something wrong. And where were you when this happens?
Yeah, I was down in, we'll call it the coordination zone of the lodge. I got a radio call being like, emergency, Jeff, does Teddy have any pills he hasn't taken? Where would his pills be? And obviously I'd heard he's not breathing, and I was like, oh my God. And there were pills in the top of his bag, I think, or not. I can't remember specifically, but ultimately, yeah, he was not breathing. And I think either Mike or Shane were doing CPR on him. So.
Yeah, and we had our bases covered with the event. We had a safety team and plans for if something happened. We had a heli pick up Teddy and get him to the hospital. And then there's conversations about should the contest go on. It was Zox, Goot. Were you a part of that conversation to see if it was going to be called off?
I actually can't remember, man. I was so probably torn up inside that I can't actually remember being a part of. The parts that I remember were laying on the ground, or not laying, sitting in the corner by this pool table.
I remember that,
The reality, just like obviously bawling my eyes out, and other people were as well. He was found and then in a helicopter, I think to Whistler within 10 minutes or something of that nature, which is pretty much unheard of in speed. And it was actually, I think, the pilot, Dave Brolin, passed away, but he was a legendary pilot up here, and he ripped him there super quick. And yeah, I just remember sitting on the ground. So I don't really remember much. Honestly, I don't remember much after that moment. And I have this vague memory of snowmobiling back to the base. And then everything after that, I don't particularly remember until the contest was over. And I obviously didn't go out in the mountains the next day. But yeah, sorry, I can't answer that one.
So it was decided that the show must go on, though. I mean, that was the end of the conversation. And looking back on that, was that the right call, or do you ever think about that?
I definitely think about it all the time. I think, if it was Teddy, he would never have wanted it to stop, knowing him so well and how much his passion for skiing was even maybe greater than mine. So I know he was, and I don't want to speak for anything too much, but I know he was living his life like that moment was like the greatest thing for him. And I remember Jonny saying something to me the night before. I was reflecting back on that day, but when we were all going through, I think you guys had taken scout photos of all the, we'll call it the holes in the event. And we were talking about, I was going through Teddy with Jonny and going, okay, this is an ideal Barbie spot. This is a cool angle for this and all that. And I remember anytime there was the chance to get in the helicopter or like the ideal filming spot, Teddy was like, I'm in. I want that spot. I want that spot. So, Jonny did like, because obviously hold a lot of like emotion with it. I remember him saying something to me being like, remember how excited he was to get in the heli and be in those spots. So, he was literally doing the same as me, living my dream. There's actually a little shrine, I guess we'd call it, or a tribute up at Journeyman Lodge with Teddy's skis, a couple photos on a tree. And I pretty much ski tour past it every day and just kind of like reflect on it and talk to him and say hi. And because I end up spending a lot of time up at Journeyman because I absolutely love the place. So I get to say hi to him on that memorial his parents put up and his brother put up.
Oh, that's so cool, man. Was Teddy the first person that you lost in the mountains?
Yeah, that was like my first, we'll call it growing up experience in the mountains with my first friend or colleague or acquaintance that passed away at that kind of level.
And did it make you think differently about things in the mountain at that time? Or was it more like Teddy had a congenital heart defect and this is a different situation than most mountain deaths?
Yeah, I think that it was just more, I think it was my first realization that life is short and it can change in an instant, as 20, whatever I was at that age. And, I've definitely reflect on that even as I continue to get older and see more people pass away in all forms of life, skiing included. But I don't think it deterred me in any sort of way. It did. I don't know. The one thing I've always thought about and talked about is I knew it was serious, but I didn't understand how serious it was. I don't think any of us in my friend group with him really understood he could pass away. We're like, well, yeah, obviously he's got to be careful and he's got to take his pills and be a certain way. But I don't think as a younger person that had, other than older people die in their life, that was the first realization that, holy crap, we can all die at 20 or whatever age, so.
And then I hate to bring up upsetting or bad things, but what was the heaviest situation that you've been in the mountains on a shoot other than that?
Oh, it was right last year, actually. Last year in Japan, friend and athlete there, Cole Richardson, just plowed into a tree sideways and went a little off target and kind of fell to the side and took a tree to the stomach. And that became more than 24 hours. I guess 24 hours from hell for him and then 24 hours of distraughtness for myself and a few other, Jordy Kittner, a few other athletes and crew. But in the end, it worked out well, but it was definitely a very intense day.
And I can imagine being in another country where there's a language barrier and all kinds of things going on. That makes everything much more confusing when that's going on.
Yeah, it was definitely massive learning. It was really interesting, I guess, culturally understanding. Luckily, the resort or a cat skiing operation we're at had a young Japanese fella, Joe Haga, that was the most legendary translator, fixer, young guy that just pushed the limits, I think, on his own culture of getting information and helpful. So he really calmed Cole and I down and just, he could have gone the other way. And he was young. I think he's like 22 or something. And he was so instrumental in just like translating and just being a part of the process that was getting Cole to a major hospital and a whole lot of major surgery.
Okay. And then when you think of injury in the mountains, you're a filmmaker. Sometimes it's your job to push people or to get them to do something or do one more for the sake of the film. Have you ever had the situation where you push someone to do something and they end up getting hurt?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing. I don't like to push people, in all honesty. Yeah, maybe I'll go back, whip off something, but especially in my older years, we talk through things and I'll suggest things and see different visions of what might be a cool shot and talk through it with people. But if someone's not feeling it, I rarely will say much and just move on or find something new to do, especially as I've become older and more conservative in my, I got kids and stuff. So I understand that like there are repercussions for actions and all that. And yeah, I can't remember where I was going with that, but in regards to, injuries, not really too many. That's why it's really not too many. It's kind of crazy. That's why I knock on wood right now, because other than Cole last year, there's been very minimal. I had a guide friend of mine blow his knee free skiing with us after filming. Other than that, not much. Couple shoulders, couple, knees to the face, but I've been very, very lucky and like to keep it that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Back to your career. It's 2008. You're at IF3 Montreal, and Jonny D, your hero, the guy that you want to be, asks you to join forces with Poor Boyz. Do you immediately say yes and shut down Theory-3?
Probably. Yeah, I remember specifically that conversation, actually. You're right, we're in the theater and stuff, and I said, yes, it's been a dream of mine, obviously. It kind of, Theory-3 was starting to run its course in what I could accomplish, on my shoestringer budgets, and they were growing, but, it was like incremental, so it was a lot of work, and I was looking up to Poor Boyz, Tyler, Jonny, and Cody, and all these guys going like, man, that's exactly what I want to do, and I'm ready to take it that way, and he's like, do it, and let's do it, and I said, I had a bit of criteria as long as I could bring a couple athletes that I really believed deserved to be at that level in a film. I mean, they were at that level, in my opinion. And he said, heck yeah, let's do it. And boom, the rest is history, I guess.
And so your first year there, Jonny is focused on surf things and bringing his family from Colombia to the U.S. Did it feel like you and Tyler Hamlet were making your own movie under the Poor Boyz umbrella?
Yes and no. Jonny is such a good, I call him like stoke manager. He instilled a lot of trust in Tyler, myself, and then obviously Cody Carter, Pete Alport, and a few other filmers. And I think that trust just allowed us to do what we were excited to do. And kind of to your point of me cutting highlight reels, I was like always doing that just to show Jonny we're on it. We're up doing our thing here in Canada or wherever I was going. And yeah, like I said, he just instilled trust and stoke into doing it. And when it came to editing, he let Tyler, myself, Cody run with it a lot and all our crazy ideas and music and style. And, he'd step in the way, hey, I think this works. I think this doesn't work. Let's try this. And he was busy, but he was the, perfect manager on the side. It was great. Perfect, like EP.
And you're in awe of Poor Boyz. I mean, that's like the company that you want to work for. But then when you get hired and you have to move down to Southern California and the curtain is peeled back, was it everything that you thought it would be?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think I've probably mimicked a lot. I was saying to someone yesterday, so I have an office set up with a bunch of ski bums working in it now. And it's kind of funny. It's probably similar but different, not on the beach here. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't know what I was expecting going down there. I think when I reflect back on it, it was probably like the cool, like living down there for the summers. I probably didn't take advantage of how awesome it was. I was a mountain boy that didn't realize biking to work via, the seawall there in Hermosa Redondo was actually pretty amazing. And learning to surf, or at least slightly learning to surf down there and spending time with amazing people, I probably should have been more excited. And I was really excited. But, when I look back on it, it was really cool.
And then that first Poor Boyz movie that comes out that you're a part of, Every Day is a Saturday, it wins all the movie awards and is arguably the best Poor Boyz movie since 1242. That has to be a career highlight for you. When you win awards like that, does that change anything for you, or is it just like back to making the next movie?
It's definitely back to making the next movie, as that's continued for a long time now, I've learned. But I think, it's funny how that movie, I have a couple of people that have now worked for me and with me currently that are like, that movie is like why they quit everything and pursued it all. You knew it was a cool movie, I guess, and it was great. And it was a progressive at that time of what was going on with all of the athletes doing what they're doing. But I didn't realize, in hindsight, how like cult hero it became of like for people. So that's pretty unique to look back on and see how many people were like, you made Every Day Saturday. It's literally why I did this or moved to Whistler or did that. Or I'm like, well, wow, crazy. That's amazing. And like I said, a few people that work for me, Joey Kraft and some of the athletes, JR and stuff, are like, that's the movie. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
It's time for my second round of sponsors, and Elan Skis doesn't need to sponsor this podcast in the summertime, but they do it because they understand the importance of cultivating the stories that make the snow industry what it is. So while they're cultivating stories off snow, on snow, Elan is building a cult following here in the US, and there are a few reasons for that. First is that the award-winning Ripstick line has proven time and again to make you a better skier. The reason why? Elan uses the best materials known to man, and that's no joke. This is the same Elan known for building award-winning luxury yachts, so there's never any cutting corners and the fit and finish is better than anything else on the ski wall. Just look up and down and compare your Elans to anything else and you'll see the difference. The second reason why Elan's selling more skis in the US is their Playmaker line. Yep, Elan has a line of twin tips that will go head-to-head with anything on the mountain. They're light, they're lively, and they're built better than any other twin tips on the wall. I'm skiing the 101, and it's been my daily driver for 2 years, and they're so much fun. Before you buy your next pair of skis, please demo a pair of Elans, or just head on over to elanskis.com, pick up a pair, and trust me, you're going to elevate your skiing experience. Next up, it's outdoor research, and I've been using OR products since I moved to Seattle almost 25 years ago because they outperform everything on the market. I mean, outdoor research builds products to perform in the wet, soggy, cold weather of the Pacific Northwest. And when you live where we do, you need to have the best in class, and that's what OR's always been. While OR's always been known for building the industry-leading gear for mountaineers, and they still do that, over the past few years, they've been focusing on working with their A-list athletes in the ski and snowboard world to create new fits and kits for the snow scene, which everyone has seen on X Games podiums and on legends like Mark Abma. And now, OR is launching its freewheel mountain bike collection, and there's no cutting corners here either. Well, I could tell you about it. Here's what the folks at Free Hub Magazine had to say about what OR is doing in bike. Outdoor research, with its legacy rooted in scientific inquiry and a passion for the outdoors, has once again raised the bar, offering riding gear that's not just functional, but also stylish and durable. The meticulous designs and thoughtful engineering of the Freewheel collection have the power to transform the mountain biking experience. Reviews don't get much better than that, and to see all the new products that OR has, head on over to outdoorresearch.com. My final sponsor this round is Stanley, the iconic Northwest brand that invented the category of keeping things hot and cold over 100 years ago. You remember Stanley from your grandfather's green thermos that kept his coffee hot and cold forever when he took you out on adventures. Well, Stanley still makes that bottle and so much more. I know you know this because they are absolutely blowing up all over the world. With Stanley, you can think tumblers, water bottles, barware, camping utensils, coolers, vacuum bottles. There really is something for everyone, and you aren't going to find them overpriced like a lot of copycat designer brands that have popped up recently. Stanley is the originator, and they pride themselves on providing you with the best products at the best value. And that value gets even better when you shop with my code. That's right, when you head on over to stanley1913.com and go shopping, when you check out, enter the code SNOW30, that's all one word, the number 30 and no spaces, and you'll get 30% off your entire order. Those are my sponsors. Now let's jump back into the podcast. With that movie, it wins all these awards, but it might not have won awards if you don't bring the farm team up from the Theory-3 days. Did it feel like bringing the Theory-3 crew up there really helped Poor Boyz kind of take it to the next level?
I think in a slightly different way. They had obviously on the US and jib side of things, plus a little like backcountry, obviously at JP and Anthony Brodowski and such. They're
Sure.
Elite backcountry people. But yeah, I think bringing in, they'll call them the slight underdogs of Dane, Charlie, Riley, etc. And we're like, as that era, like pretty into snowmobiling and spending way too many days outside and deep in the mountains. That brought like this other aspect to it, which I like really tried. In the Theory-3 side, I looked up to snowboard movies a lot, and old movies like Pop and Absinthe Films and such. And that's where like we, skiers and stuff, we'd watch those movies before, alongside like PvP and Level 1 to go build jumps. But that's what I think we got to bring a little bit to Poor Boyz, where it was like more of that like big backcountry jumping kind of aspect, mini golf. And yeah, so I think, seeing guys like Charlie and Dane really run with it in that movie, I think helped for sure.
In the next season, I think it's the Revolver season. Everything is kind of moved up to Whistler for Poor Boyz headquarters because you have a place there that's in a rock star spot and you run it out of that condo. Is it a lot easier making a movie when you're in the mountains?
Yeah, I think so. Because it was easy if we needed something, there were more people around because still summer camps were going on. So if it was interviews or pickup shots, it was right there. I think on the flip side, the detachment going down to say SoCal is actually better because you can kind of like remove yourself and just commit into something and like remove yourself from snow constantly. So I think there's probably actually benefits to both.
Yeah, and when you think about that, when you're in the place where all the athletes are and you're doing edits, you can have athletes come to the condo and stand over your shoulder. And I heard that was one thing, especially back in the day, that you had problems with, where an athlete would kind of look at you and be like, no, I want it like this, 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 and this. And you're like, look, man, this is how it's going to be. I know what I'm doing. And was that ever frustrating for you when a non-filmmaker was trying to tell you how the film should be made?
I think how a film should be made, yes. If it's like tricks and style and all that stuff, I love hearing like, no, this is better because obviously that is like real personal. When it comes down to like flow, story, and all that stuff, I'm definitely open to things and probably more open than I am now, but I definitely am probably stubborn in what I see in my head. I want to at least get it on paper's the wrong word, but create it first before anyone feeds back on it. It's like showcase your vision before you get too much feedback. Want to like get it on. I'm happy to change it, but let me show you what I'm thinking first.
And did you ever butt heads with anybody? Was there any one athlete that like really frustrated you or vice versa?
I don't think so, actually. Maybe there has been, but not too much on the like creative front. There's probably been like give and take, I'm sure, but there's nothing like major butting heads that comes to mind.
Okay. And then you do 2 movies with Poor Boyz, and then you end up going to work for Mike Douglas at Switchback Entertainment. How does that one come together? Like, you're with your dream job, and why do you want to leave after 2 years? Because you seem like a 5-year guy everywhere you go.
I know, that's the one I didn't do 5 years there. Yeah, I remember Mike walking into where we're editing, and Mike says something to Tyler. Hey, Tyler, blah, blah, blah. I'm looking for someone that can do this list of things. And Tyler turns around and says, well, that's what Jeff can do. And I was like, what are you talking about? And ultimately, Mike was looking for someone to work at Switchback to take what was becoming Solomon Frisky TV to the next level. And it's funny. I think probably with that, something I've always say life is about timing. And that timing just hit me in this weird way where I was like, obviously make ski movies is my dream, but ski porn is ski porn. And I kind of want to try something new. Let me talk to Mike Douglas. And I'd seen what they were doing, and I was like, I love the creativity of what Solomon Frisky TV was doing at that time, where it was like, I'm going to call it simply like mini movies. Each one was like a different mini movie, so I thought that was really unique. And when I sat down with Mike, I thought, hey, this sounds amazing. Also, it was based in Whistler, so it was really easy. I could bike to, actually, it was really close to where I was currently living, so it was right down the road. And Mike was the next person that was influential in my career.
So you were going to say that you could bike to work, but how can you bike to work when you're either wearing huge 3-pound boots or flip-flops? Because I hear that's all you wear.
That's pretty much all I wear, yeah. I need like a pro model sandal. I tear up my sandals too much. So sandal guy.
Okay. And then when you get to Switchback, is that the first time where you're almost in like a real professional setting with real budgets and planning? Because I think Jonny stuff, like you're in a basement and you're living with Andrew and living with Ross, and it's a little bit of a different setup. Is it a little more pro when you get to Douglas?
Just different. Yeah. It was, still, a house suite style office similar to mine now. Like, I think the difference was, just full transparency into full planning with being the one negative of me when Poor Boyz is I lived up here in Canada in Whistler and everyone else was down in SoCal. So I definitely probably reflecting back on, I felt like not in a negative way. I just wasn't in every single meeting because I lived up here, and we didn't have FaceTime and Zoom and all these things. So I would bounce down there on a few flights to be part of planning and all that. So like with Mike, it was like, boom, I'm there 100% of the time, and let's take it to the next level that way.
I guess the thing with you and Switchback is that you're your own director. So with Mike, you're given a budget, you're given the tasks, and you could go run with the project at hand. So did it feel like you were doing your own thing within like this creative umbrella? Totally.
Yeah. And then, the autonomy that Mike gave me was incredible. I learned so much from Mike over those years. And just enough rope to hang myself kind of thing. And it was awesome. A lot of like, here is a crazy idea, this is what I'm thinking, or Mike had a crazy idea and you run with it. It was really unique in that regard.
You guys put out so much incredible content. I mean, it would just seem like short after short after short after short. When you think of the projects that meant the most to you, what would they be?
Within Solomon, or with Switchback and Solomon, there's definitely short films I made called The Burn, or like a lot of just the travel and the trips and learning to storytell in the moment. If you're given a week or 14 days in a place and you've only been able to investigate a bit before, and then when you get there, you have to dive into it and like really storytell, like reflect back on so many different trips where you become a little doc filmmaker or whatever you want to call it, where you're like learning to storytell, investigate, produce all of the things really quickly. But I think like probably the Burn one was really cool. A night thing we did was really amazing because no one had really done a lot of night stuff yet.
Yep.
And then people started doing night stuff after that. And then, the Freedom Chair with Josh Dueck was so rewarding to watch, Josh Dueck on a sit ski do backflips and like become who he is now. So, yeah.
He's such an incredible individual. And you're with Mike for like 5 years, and then you do something that I really wouldn't expect. You move to an agency, Origin Design and Communication. What made you want to enter the agency world?
Again, life is about timing. I saw them post a job that one was paying well. It was to like be the boss of that department. And something I always wanted to do was do that and have my own thing again, whether it was my own company or whatnot. And to be fully transparent, I wanted to do more with Mike, and he wasn't looking for partners, so that is what it is. Not that that like fully changed my mind or tangented me away right away, but it was kind of like, okay, get it. They posted a role that sounded super interesting. I had been dealing with the two owners on a bunch of projects because Switchback was doing a bunch of stuff with Whistler Blackcomb, that Origins was Origins client and stuff like that. And I was enjoying that process, and I definitely like to learn. And it was a different way. Obviously, when you're working at Switchback and with Solomon, you're kind of like just the producer, we'll call it, and like the creator, which is cool. But like at Origin, I was ultimately able to like shape a department, hire my own team, and just sit in the meetings that I wanted to be in, and then also just learn like a different aspect of filmmaking, I guess, and not even just filmmaking, advertising and marketing. Was it amazing? Yes and no. I learned an absolute ton, and I'm super grateful to them, but it was a little bit harder for me because I deep down was still wanted to be a core ski movie maker.
Did you get to do work outside of skiing, like for just other industries and other things?
Yeah, a lot of Origin lived mainly in the outdoor industry, so I was able to stay within the realm of outdoor tourism marketing. So that was cool, and products and such. So there was lots of different outdoorsy stuff, lots of skiing, but never like what I define as like core skiing until I, with a few other people, pitched making a ski movie for Whistler Blackcomb, so which was fun.
Yeah, when you made that movie with Whistler Blackcomb, Magnetic, that project was really amazing as it brought all the heavy hitters from the Whistler area together, and you're able to work with all them. But this is right around the time that Vail came in. Did you have to work with Vail on that project, or was it right when the break happened?
Man, that is a story that I don't actually have all of the information, so that's a great one. But yeah, they hadn't gotten bought yet. We pitched this idea, then they got bought. Well, Stuart Rumpel, Mike Crow, and Nick, and a few others all signed off on this ski movie idea we'd pitched, and they wanted to do something big because we were actually just talking about this yesterday. I would always say Whistler Blackcomb marketing was like very awesome. They like wanted to showcase how awesome the resort was, but like the community, the athletes, the whole thing. So they always put out a lot of stuff and wanted to support the community and do big things. So this one just fell right in line, I think, with what Stuart's vision of Whistler Blackcomb marketing was. So they said yes, had a great budget for it. And then yes, Vail came in, but I don't think they were fully in control yet. It was like kind of that gray area of transition. But then, yeah, at the end there, once we were done, Vail didn't really want to release it. And they killed off the movie tour. And from what I understand, really tried to not put it out. But the legends of WB, Mike and Nick and Stuart and everyone fought for it and put it out. I mean, the promotional money was held back minus a massive premiere we had of like 1,500 people up here in Worcester, which was quite the party. Other than that, it went out online, and that was really it, which was too bad. But it did end up winning an SAA Best Video Marketing, which I found greatly ironic since they tried to kill it.
That is so funny how the big corporation works, and now the big corporation owns your town. I was up there this winter, and I had bought like $400 lift tickets, and they gave me my little lift pass that I had to have sent in the mail to my house. And my kid was sick one day, and I went up to the lift window, and I had his ticket instead of mine by accident. I had both on me, and they scanned his, and then they pretty much like immediately like flagged me, and they said I couldn't ski, and pretty much I had to have like 2 hours worth of conversations with people to get my kid and myself on the mountain when he was ready to ski. I was so fucking pissed because of the corporation and the barriers that I had to do. But I don't want to get pissed off at Whistler. I don't want to get pissed off at Vail. I'll let you do that. How have they changed your town?
Yeah, the town, that's an interesting one. I don't want to talk too negatively, but they definitely removed a lot of corporate jobs or career jobs, which is always a negative when you have a small town that lives off those types of things. So when any company comes in of size and moves them out, it is what it is. I'm not an idiot. That is the way the world works, but it definitely directly affected many people I know that have either had to leave, downsize, or just, unfortunately step away from what they really love to do, which was a huge negative. And
then back to the agency, I guess I have two more agency questions. One, do you have to live in a city and wear like a suit and tie to work or dress up at least?
No, that would been pretty funny. Yeah, I could still wear my flip-flops, I hope. No, it was pretty an awesome office and just down the road again from where I lived. A nice little bike ride, and that time I think there was about 25 of us working all in an office in Whistler, Function Junction specifically.
Okay. Why did you leave the agency?
It kind of run its course. Honestly, after making Magnetic, I realized deep down I wanted to make ski movies again, and I like really loved that. Yeah, it was just the way it kind of again ran its course. Had some opportunities that I started to see happening outside of what I was doing at Origin, and was like wondering if I should pursue them or not. Kind of just was curious. That Magnetic movie, like, got, call it old friends poking me again about joining in on that kind of filmmaking again, or brand content marketing, or whatever you want to call it, a variety of things. So I just said, you know what? I kind of want to be my own boss again. And I had some great conversations with my wife. She's like the most supportive person, and she was actually her fault. She's like, just do it. I'm so glad she said that, because just jumped in with everything. I think that's the thing. If you do these things, you just got to go for it, and went for it. And then, that was 6.5 years ago.
So now it's Jeff Thomas Creative, and I promised you that I would keep this podcast to an hour. So I'm going to do that. And we're going to kind of pull the brakes on this right now. But with Jeff Thomas Creative, you've done so many different things. You've worked with Blank Collective, you've worked with Toyota, you've worked with Head Skis, and a ton of other people. We're not going to talk about all that, because what I have now is my final segment of the show. I call this Inappropriate Questions. And I get someone that you know to ask 3 questions, and they can be anything. I was able to get a roommate of yours from your Poor Boyz days in California, a filmmaker who's now an influencer known as the nerdy about nature guy, Ross Reid. And are you ready for question number 1 from Ross?
Yes, I'm ready for a question from Mr. Nerdy by Nature.
All right, let me cue it up.
Jeff Thomas, as a ski filmmaker, sometimes there can be really long days in difficult working conditions, freezing cold, hungry, not enough, or sometimes too many beers, and working with angsty athletes can be really tricky. You don't have to name any names, but have you ever butted heads, gotten into an argument, or had any prolonged beef with any skiers, and what went down?
I actually can't remember this.
Come on, you had to have had butted heads with a skier. I mean, I've heard a story where you might have butted heads with Grant Gunderson once.
I definitely butted heads with Grant one time, yes.
Do you care to share the story?
I won't go too deep, but it was a rough trip in the northern part of Vancouver Island, and Grant and I have known each other since I was 17, and I think I whipped him in the ass after him being quite annoying one day. I whipped him in the ass with a belt, and then he charged me, and then we got in a little fight. We'll just say that. Yeah, and we both mutually apologized, and we drank beers and ate some salmon, I think, or something like that. So it was pretty, that one was, don't know, not many people know that one.
All right, but no butting heads with skiers that you can really think of.
I think there was one or two now. I think with Poor Boyz, maybe like John Spriggs and I didn't get along at one point, something like that. That one was pretty bad, but I can't really remember, to be honest.
I actually remember I've had the story told on the podcast before. So You guys all lived together, and like you had a toilet that was clogged, and I think Spriggs shit on top of the toilet and like flooded the whole bathroom, and there's shit everywhere, and then he just left, and that pissed you off, which it should.
I don't remember if I got pissed off at 100. I'm sure we were all pissed off, Tyler, all of us living there. I forgot about that story. That was the most disgusting thing that Tyler and me, we had to clean that up. That was rough.
All right, we're going to jump into Ross's second inappropriate question. Here we go.
Glacier, Washington is a heck of a place, and you've spent a ton of time there between Grams and Mount Baker during the early parts of your career growing up. What was the rowdiest night you either do or don't remember from that little era?
The rowdiest nights at Mount Baker?
Yes.
Oh, it's been lots of good times down there. I can't really remember the rowdiest, but we definitely, when we were young, and still to the day I go back and everyone laughs how much time I spent at Baker, but we used to go, I think you guys had the K2 camp or something back then too.
Yeah, totally.
We'd go camp in the Mount Baker parking lot, which you're not supposed to do, but then it didn't matter so much. We go and we're allowed to like snowmobile around there. You would have these like big 20, 30 person, like we go out, all build jumps together kind of things. And massive bonfires in the parking lot, causing a lot of trouble, sledding at night and all these things. So that was like 24-ish, 10, a long time ago. Definitely lots of mayhem, and I don't think we're allowed to do that anymore.
Have you ever tied anyone to a tree and fed them wired energy drink?
Yes, I have. Our mutual friend, Cody Carter. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Good memory. I forgot about that. It was Cody's birthday, I think. So we decided to make sure he had an extra bit of fun. And he was being a little bit, I remember it was Tyler Foreman and I and everyone else being like, come on, Cody, have some fun. So we just tied him to a tree, and I think we made him beer bong energy drink, which I feel bad about now.
Well, I think he looks back on it fondly or whatever.
Yeah.
Let's jump into your final inappropriate question from Ross.
You are officially the reigning champ of shotgun beers in Jonny D's basement garage in Redondo Beach, California, doing them nearly twice as fast than the runner-up, whether it be from a can or a bottle. Tell me, who taught you to bite the lid off a beer bottle? How many do you think you've done at this point in your life? And do you think the dentist accepts payment in NAR points for it all?
If the dentist is Ross's dad, he might.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know who taught me to do that smart thing of biting a beer bottle top off, but yeah, I still do that, which is really poor because my mother-in-law's in the orthodontic industry and she doesn't like me doing that. Definitely bitten off probably in the multiple hundreds to thousands, probably. I think a real bad story, and I can't remember it specifically, but Abma begged me, or not begged me, was like, come on, Jeffy, teach me how. And I was like, no, I don't teach you how to do this. It's bad. And then finally I had enough beers in me, and I was like, okay, this is how you do it. And then he like split his tooth in half, and I felt really bad.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that was that. And then shotgunning, yeah, probably, I don't know who taught me that, but my mom, God rest her soul, she was always a big fan of taking shots of tequila with all my buddies. So maybe there's something in there that maybe when I was young, she taught me to shotgun or something like that. But yes, I rarely get beat.
All right, so that is Inappropriate Questions, and that's our podcast. And I will say that you're an award-winning filmmaker with so much talent behind the lens and in the editing bay, but you also ski so good that athletes have to respect you. And I think a big part of why your work is always so good, when you combine that with the work ethic of the Wolverine, and it's like you're a ski movie machine who after 20 plus years hasn't gotten bored of carrying the big camera backpack to remote cold places to create ski porn. There's not too many like you that'll do it at your age. You're one of the best at it, and I thank you for your time.
Yeah, thanks. That was super fun. Great to finally do this.
So that was time with Jeff Thomas. And I think other than him winning awards, he'll be the guy known for finding so much talent within the ski industry. I mean, the list he created early in the podcast from the early days of talent that he found was really long, but that kept going throughout his career. He just has that eye. One of the careers he helped break was Charlie Ager. And while Charlie was on the Atomic team and they weren't doing anything for him but giving him triplets to bring to park contests, I remember Jeff Thomas coming up to me at a trade show and telling me, Charlie Ager wants Hellbents, and if you can get him some Hellbents in the next couple days, he's going to film the rest of the season with them, and he's going to blow up this year. I think I sent Charlie a pair of Hellbents from the trade show booth I was at that day, and Charlie sure as shit became a legend. I spoke with Charlie this week for the podcast just to catch up and to see how he was doing and get some info on Jeff, and I'm happy to say that Charlie is doing amazing. He's skiing once a week, he has 2 kids, and he works his ass off the rest of the time. So with the check-in with Charlie Ager, he's doing great. Jeff Thomas seems to be doing great as well. He's one of those guys who quietly has tentacles that reach almost everywhere in the ski industry. He's getting older. And while most older people in the industry leave the adventuring and the carrying big backpacks deep into the backcountry, breaking trail, and all those things that people in their 20s and 30s do, Jeff still sounds like that's what he loves to do, make ski porn. And while he does a lot of other things, he'll never really get away from that. That's the podcast. I want to thank you for listening. I want to ask you to review me wherever you listen to me. If I do read your review on the show, you will win something from me. All you need to do is email me at mike@thepowellmovement.com and you will get something. I also have t-shirts that I'm working on getting on the website. You can buy those. They're going to be $40 a t-shirt, and that is how you can support me. That includes shipping, and it is the best printing process you will ever see in a podcast t-shirt. It is sick, so I know you're going to enjoy those. Finally, I want you to support the brands that make this show happen. I only work with the best, and they are Liquid Force, Stanley, Outdoor Research, Elan Skis, Peter Glenn Ski and Sports, and Best Day Brewing. Have a great week, everyone.